In recent years, the football world has lost players whose careers could have continued for many more years. Some had just reached their peak. Some had already become symbols of an entire era. And some were fighting battles that the audience could never see on the pitch. Today we are looking at 5 stories. Not to chase cheap shock, and not to turn someone else's tragedy into entertainment. This is about the paths these footballers took, the final turning points in their lives, and the memory they left behind. Diogo Jota was the kind of footballer people could underestimate if they only paid attention to the size of his name. He never needed the entire game to revolve around him, but whenever the ball reached the penalty area, Jota usually found the answer before everyone else. He was born in Porto, came through Portuguese football, and eventually became an important part of Liverpool. His strengths were speed, sharp movement, and the ability to appear between defenders at exactly the right moment. Nothing about his game had to look theatrical. It simply appeared when it mattered. By the summer of 2025, Jota had already won major trophies at club and international level. He had recently married, had a family, and was preparing for another football season. On July 3rd, Jota and his brother, Andre Silva, were traveling on a road in Spain. According to Spanish authorities, their car left the road and caught fire. Both brothers died. What makes this story especially painful is not only how suddenly it happened, it is the fact that, only days earlier, Jota still seemed to have an ordinary football tomorrow ahead of him. Training camps, matches, new goals, and another season to build. Sometimes a football career does not end with an injury or a final match. Sometimes it disappears between 2 points on a map, leaving behind not a statistic, but silence. If Jota was a player whose value could be found in the details, Diego Maradona was football as a complete event. He grew up in Argentina and became a symbol of how talent could carry someone from the edge of the world to its biggest stage. Boca Juniors, Barcelona, Napoli, and the Argentina national team. Every new chapter became part of the legend. The greatest proof of his influence came at the World Cup. Maradona did not simply play for Argentina. He controlled the team's emotions, its rhythm, and its belief. In Mexico, he captained the side that lifted the biggest trophy in football. After his playing career, too many contradictions surrounded his name. To some, he was a genius who gave football moments that seemed impossible. To others, he was a man who never managed to separate the public myth from his personal struggles. On November 25, 2020, Maradona died after suffering cardiac arrest. He was 60 years old. It is important not to reduce his life to one beautiful sentence or one dark sentence. Maradona was a historic player, a national hero, and a person with an extraordinarily complicated fate. His goals do not erase his problems. His problems do not erase the fact that he changed football forever. Pelé's death was not sudden. But even when the world knew about his illness, it was impossible to feel ready for the news. Edson Arantes do Nascimento became Pelé while he was still a teenager. He grew up in Brazil, joined Santos, and turned the football pitch into a place where age seemed to stop mattering. At 17, he had already won the World Cup. Later, he would win it 2 more times. 3 World Cup titles made him more than a great Brazilian footballer. Pelé became the face of the football Brazil showed to the world. Technical, free, beautiful, and dangerous. But behind the image of the king was an ordinary human being who grew older, became ill, and gradually lost his strength. In 2028, he was diagnosed with a colon tumor. After treatment, his condition worsened, and in December 2022, Pelé died at the age of 60 from complications related to the illness. The people of Santos said goodbye to him as someone who belonged not only to one club or one country. His career had ended decades earlier, but its memory continued in every generation that first discovered football through his movement. Johan Cruyff was a footballer who changed the game before people had even learned to expect his decisions. He did not play only with his feet. He saw space a second earlier, forced opponents to move according to his rules, and turned the pitch into a chessboard. Ajax, the Netherlands, Barcelona, in each of those places, Cruyff left more than goals and trophies. He left an idea of football. He won 3 European Cups with Ajax, led the Netherlands to the 2073 World Cup final, and later, as a coach, laid the foundations for the great Barcelona team of the early 2000 Devon-Nansik. But behind the tactics and the beautiful football language, there was also a personal battle. In 2015, Cruyff announced that he had been diagnosed with lung cancer. He continued to talk about football, work on his projects, and support the people around him. But the illness gradually took away his strength. On March 24, 2016, Johan Cruyff died in Barcelona at the age of 67. His death felt like the end of an era, even though the football idea he created continued to live through other coaches, teams, and generations of players. Cruyff is remembered not only as a legendary player, he is remembered as someone who proved that the greatest legacy of a footballer or a coach is sometimes not a trophy, but a way of thinking that survives its creator. Yashin became a legend in a position people usually notice only after a mistake. Goalkeepers rarely receive the same attention as strikers. Yashin changed what the world believed a goalkeeper could do. He spent his entire club career at Dynamo Moscow and became the face of Soviet football. Yashin did not simply stop shots. He commanded his defense, came far outside his goal, and started attacks with his first pass. People called him the Black Spider because of his dark kit and long arms that seemed to cover the entire goal. With the Soviet Union, he won the 1960 European Championship and became an Olympic champion. In 1963, Yashin won the Ballon d'Or, the only goalkeeper in history to receive the award as Europe's best footballer. After he retired, his health seriously declined. Yashin spent his final years fighting a severe illness, and on March 20, 1990, he died in Moscow at the age of 60. But history did not leave him as a man defeated by illness. It left him as the goalkeeper who turned his position into an art form and proved that one player between the posts could change an entire team. 5 footballers, 5 different lives. Jota was still building his career. Maradona had become a legend, impossible to separate from football history. Pelé outlived his own era and remained its symbol. Cruyff left behind a football idea that is still alive. Yashin transformed goalkeeping into an art of its own. Their stories cannot be reduced to one cause or one lesson, but they can be connected by memory. Football is not only goals, trophies, and numbers. Behind every name there is a person, a family, friends, and teammates who had to walk onto the pitch after hearing the worst possible news. That is why stories like these should not be told only for shock. They should be told so we remember not just the final day, but the whole life that came before it.